And I just wanted to take a moment to go over some of the common questions that people ask when you're with a family and you're presenting. I thought this would be helpful to do that. Yeah, and one of the reasons why, and thank you for joining for another session with Freedom Life Financial Group and Security National Life. We appreciate, as always, you being here and being a part of us. And as I said, I wanted to make sure that we had common questions addressed, because what we don't want people is to go in wondering what kind of questions might a family ask me, and am I going to have the answers, and am I going to be equipped to be able to give them competent responses to whatever inquiries they may have. And so let me just go down the line of some questions that you may receive from a family without delay. So first of all, can I transfer a pre-need? Absolutely, you can transfer a pre-need. Generally, you can, not generally, but you can transfer a pre-need at two separate occasions: when a person passes and when a pre-need is paid for. So even if they get a pre-need at one, with a funeral home, at the time of need, when a person passes, they can transfer that to another funeral home, or when that funeral is paid off, when they no longer have to make any more payments, then that pre-need can be transferred to another funeral home as well. And so, often you get the question, well, will that funeral home accept that pre-need? 99% of the time, the answer is yes. There's a few outlier funeral homes that may not accept it, and the reason for that is, for an example, Sparkman Hillcrest in Highland Park. The average funeral at Sparkman Hillcrest is $28,000, and so that's just that's in one of the most highest socioeconomic geographical areas in the country. People easily go in there, and spend $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 on a funeral. So so that's not a place that you're going to be able to take that policy to. But most kids, keep in mind that most funeral homes are not in the business of turning away money. They want money, and they don't want somebody else to get the pre-need. So they know if they don't accept it, somebody else is going to accept it. And so they want to get as much business as possible. So yes, you can transfer it, and yes, they will accept it. What if the funeral home goes out of business? That's a good question, because that's one of the reasons why you cannot take your payment to the funeral home anymore. It used to be, back in the day, you could actually take your pre-need payment to the funeral home. But what was happening was the funeral home was, in many ways, not all, but some, they were actually taking that money that people were paying on the pre-need plan, and they were actually using that to buy furniture and vehicles. And some were being malicious, and others just thought, well, listen, we could take this, it's going to help build the business, and that way, it's going to make the business more prominent. But it didn't happen that way. Businesses go through cycles. A lot of the funeral homes went through hard times, and then when people died and needed their funerals paid for, the funeral home didn't have the money because they spent it on furniture and cars that were sitting out in the front of the funeral home. And so, the states basically said, no, we're not doing that anymore. So all funeral plans, that money goes into state funded and run trust. So that money is protected. The funeral home doesn't see a penny of that money until the person passes. That way, if the funeral home goes out of business, the money is protected. And again, you can use it at different funeral homes if that business goes, the funeral home goes out of business. Can I use this in conjunction with my other insurance policies? Of course you can. If you have a pre-need plan, one of the main reasons for a pre-need plan is the fact that your family doesn't have to go in on the worst day of their lives and make the most difficult decisions of their lives. But people have different types of insurance policies. Some, just because you have a pre-need plan that covers your funeral expenses and prevents people from having to make those decisions, there's a lot of times that people need to continue to live. You might have kids or grandkids or a spouse or a husband that needs to keep living and providing for children and college, etc. And so you have other policies that are designated for other things other than just funeral expenses. Can I pay the funeral home directly? No, not well. You can pay them directly if you do it at the time of need, when a person passes. So you can walk right in there, because you can't do a pre-need plan after they've died. So you have to pay them directly. But as it relates to in advance, no, you cannot pay them directly on a pre-need funeral plan. Do I need to list all of my grandchildren on my agreement for them to be protected? No, just as long as they are a part of your lineage, they are considered under your policy protection. You do not have to list all of their names. how does the grandchild protection work? The child, grandchild, great grandchild, step great grandchild, this, you, there's a lot of different ways that they can be protected. Well, the protection works from a child that is from age 1 to age 18. So if they haven't reached 1 yet, they're not covered. If they go beyond 18, they're not covered. And so the way the plan works is when a person goes in and puts money in their plan, that money accumulates in that plan. If a grandchild passes away, that money that's in that plan actually can go towards that grandchild's funeral, our child's funeral, our great grandchild's funeral. But the person doesn't lose their benefits, even though the money is going towards their grandchild. They don't lose their personal benefits. Will you have a funeral for my dog? Because there is pet protection. But no, there will not be a funeral for your dog, your cat, your goldfish, or anything like that. But, if your dog is ill and has to be taken to the vet and put down, we will pay $150 towards the veterinarian costs putting the dog down, but we will not be singing spirituals over your dog's passing. What happens if I die before it's paid off? So it depends, if you're a limited plan, and as I talked about, and you're within that first 24 months, you're going to get a return of premium plus 10% compounded interest paid to you. So first 24 months, if it's a limited plan. So, but if it's a full benefit plan, then you're going to, if it's within 24 months, then there's going to be a short investigation to make sure the person didn't lie on their application. And then after that, the policy, the funeral is paid for. So what is the difference between a full benefit and a limited benefit? A limited benefit is for the first 24 months, you get a return of premium plus 10% interest on your policy if something were to happen within the first 24 months. So you never lose money, but you get a return of premium, what you put into it, plus 10% interest earned on the plan. And then if it's a full benefit, then you're fully covered from day one. But if it happens within the first 24 months, they do a short investigation to make sure that you didn't lie on your application. And if you didn't, then the whole funeral is paid for. So what is dollar for dollar? What is a dollar for dollar plan? So this is a plan for people who, are not able to be insured, because of AIDS or, other extenuating circumstances. So what they get is what they put in. It's not an insurable product from the standpoint of if they die, the whole funeral is going to be paid for, but they get what they put in. But the benefit of this is they do get to freeze the cost of the funeral. Those funerals do double in price every 8 to 10 years. So they get to lock in the price of the funeral. Can I just pay it off? Absolutely. You can pay at any time. You can pay it off on day one. I just want to pay this whole thing off and do a single pay. Absolutely, you can do that. A month later, I just want to pay it off right now. Absolutely. 2 years later, I just want to pay it off right now. Can I do that? Absolutely. Can I pay it off early? Yeah, exactly. Yes. The short answer is absolutely yes, you can. And the sooner you pay it off, the less cost of risk you're going to pay. So that leads to the question, is there any interest? There is no interest, but there is something called cost of risk. So the risk of actually insuring you, and that risk, depending on your age, if you're younger, that cost of risk is less. If you're 78 years old, that cost of risk is going to be more. And then everything in between. Not that it's cuts off, because if you're 80, that cost of risk is high too. And so cost of risk is based on age, and you can, if you paid it off in a single pay, you pay no cost of risk. There's no risk because you own it outright. But if you're making monthly installments, there's generally some cost of risk. It might be 50 cents, it might be 80 cents, but there's, what the company is trying to do is recapture some of their money in the event that you die early, because then they're responsible for paying your entire funeral. If you die in an accident, they're responsible for paying you your entire funeral, plus giving you a cash benefit on top of that. Plus, there's also the risk of one of your grandchildren passing or your children passing. There's risk on that. There's a lot of risk. And so they are covering that risk, but they're asking you to pay a small amount to help cover that risk. So there's no interest. There is something called cost of risk. Now, some people will say, well, isn't that the same thing? No, it's not the same thing, because if you're younger, you really have no cost of risk, or very little cost of risk. So it's not interest. It's calculated by age, mortality tables, etc. Can I upgrade my plan? Yes, you can. You can always go back in and upgrade your casket or other things that you may want to add. Or at the time of need, the family can just add some additional things at that time if they want to do that. Are there family plans that include the entire family? No, there are not. And one of the reasons for that is each plan is based on a particular person's health. So if one family member has AIDS and another family member doesn't have AIDS, you can't put them all in the same plan because there are two health situations that are going on there. So each plan has to be for each individual. Can a person purchase if they are in another state? Yes, they can. So, and this happens all the time. So you might have a person, you're selling in one state, but you're not licensed in another state, and you have a family member that wants to get a pre-need, but they're in another state, you can go ahead and sell them with a funeral home that you represent in your state, and they can either come, maybe they're going to move to your state at a later point in time, and they're going to have their funeral there, or they can, once they pass or it's paid off, they can transfer it then to the funeral home in their state of their choosing. So you can go ahead and purchase it. They can purchase it with the funeral home that you represent now, and then it can be transferred at a later date to the funeral home, another funeral home, particularly in the state that they are. Does full and limited benefit affect my commission? Absolutely, it does. So if it's a full benefit, you're going to be paid a higher commission. If it's a limited benefit, you're going to be paid, still a good commission, but less if it's a limited benefit plan. Does a person's health affect my commission? Well, in a sense, because their health is going to be determined if it's going to be a full benefit or limited benefit, and that comes back to your commission is based on if they're full benefit, that's one commission level. If they're limited benefit, it's another. Does it affect my commission if a person does direct billing or a credit card pay? Yes, it does. It doesn't affect the overall amount, but what it does affect is what is actually paid to you. So if it's a direct bill or a credit card or a debit card, I'm sorry, that direct billing. I'm sorry, that should be two L's. My apologies. But that's going to be a 50% advance on commissions as opposed to an 80%. And so, you always want to get EFT, checking, bank account. I talked about this in subsequent classes, courses. And so hopefully you recall that. Does it affect my commission for a person who's 35 years and under? Yes, it does affect from the standpoint of if a person is 35 years and under, you're going to get a 30% advance, 70% is going to go into your commission because there's a high rescission rate of people who are 35 years and under. How do reserves work? So, generally speaking, you are paid 80% on your commissions and 20% is put in your reserves until it caps at 10,000. And after it caps, then 100% of your commission, whether it's a direct pay, a credit card, doesn't make a difference. 100% of your commission comes to you once your reserve is capped. Now, I would always encourage that you actually put at least 5%, continually into your reserve just for your protection. Will my commission increase in time? Yes, it will, particularly if you're producing and if you're recruiting a team. But even if you're recruiting personally, your commission will increase because you will be promoted. And what is an annuity? An annuity is for someone who is going to be dying in the next 6 months, or someone who is at a particular age. I talked about this. If you're terminal, you're going to do an annuity. If they're, I believe, above 80, you're going to do an annuity. But I talked about this in the subsequent course. What are the terms in which I can pay for a plan? Well, it all depends on the plan. You have the limited or full benefit plan, which is you can do a 3 year, a 5 year, an 8 year, or 10 year. But for dollar, I believe it's a 3, 5, and 8 year plan. So the terms are on the agreement. When you look at the agreement, it shows the terms on the agreement. So those are the main questions that you're going to get when you're dealing with a customer. If you come across other plans, just tell them, listen, I'm not sure on that. That's not going to stop you getting the signature on the plan. Say, listen, I don't know about that one, but I tell you what, we'll go ahead and take care of this, but I'll go ahead and find that out tomorrow and get back to you. But those questions right there are pretty much the lion's share of questions that you're going to get as it relates to your pre-need plan. All right, I hope this helped, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much. God bless.